Tonight, our focus is Cybersecurity Levy and the controversies and matters surrounding it. My guest tonight is Sonny Adenuga, an IT expert and also the national chairman, Boot Party. Welcome to Politics Tonight, everyone. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you very much for staying with us. It's a 30-minute conversation tonight, so let's get straight into it. Tonight, we're focusing on cybersecurity and matters arising as President Bola Tinubu has suspended the 0.5% cybersecurity levy after criticism and protest trailed the announcement. Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, announced the suspension, saying that President Tinubu directed the Central Bank of Nigeria to suspend the review the modalities for the implementation of the proposed levy. For these and more, let's speak with Sonny Adenuga, an IT expert and national chairman of Boot Party. Good evening to you, Mr. Adenuga. Thank you so much for joining us on Politics Tonight.
Jumoke, sorry with my audio there. Yeah, nice to be with you on Politics Tonight.
Right. So, I mean, like you heard me say earlier, after diverse criticisms from several stakeholders, especially the IT world, the president ordered the suspension and review of the modalities for implementation of the cybersecurity levy. In your opinion, this is what you wanted, right?
Well, in a way, but that doesn't solve the problem. So I'm going to wear my political hat now and try to explain a bit about that. It's good. The president clearly listened and did what he should do at that point in time. However, I think the lawyers can correct me here. In a democratic system, it's a process. Once a president, has assented to a bill, it becomes law. Like in this case, it's even amended, and so it's a law. So a mere proclamation by the president for the CBN to suspend the activity is probably not enough. Instead, what should happen, civil society, political party like ours, should proceed to court and ensure that there is a proper court order to stop CBN from acting. Because what the president has done now, if he's not careful, he's going to get criticism from another quarter saying he's not allowing the independence of CBN. So the CBN, they are usually responsible for monetary policy, while government is responsible for fiscal policy. So the best practice in the world is that they are independent. So if one of them is giving order to another, then the president could really get another criticism from that area. But when it comes to the populace, what the president has done is fair enough, but on the IT side of things now, then the question we should start asking, and in the submission that I made through the political party that I lead, it's clear we want to understand, is this really what the CBN has done? Have they acted out of order? And that's something tells me about that. I have a fair appreciation of law, and I beg to differ with anyone here that something as serious as a levy can't just be inserted into an act, and there is no clear definition. It might interest you to know, in this act that we're talking about, the Cybercrimes Act of 2015, it gave a lot of interpretations to terms, to some words using this act. But it will surprise you to know, electronic transaction, when we talk about a law that has to do with information technology, was not actually given any interpretation. And if you talk to an IT person like myself, and I'm going to say, well, if you send an email from one person to another, it's an electronic transaction. So what that tells me is this, and this is a question from me, saying that, is this a rogue seed? You know, that insertion, that section 44 of the Act, Is it a rogue seed of someone just thinking, oh, let's put something here, and CBN got hold of it and wanted to implement it in their own way?
All right, so Mr. Adenuga, so would you say CBN misinterpreted the law and
I think so.
that the act itself is contradictory?
I think so, but of course, we know the way legal system works. If we are able to challenge this in court, then the judges, the lawyers, they may have access, what they call Hansard, that is the detail of like a minute, when this bill, when the act was being discussed in the National Assembly as a bill, to know the thinking of the legislators at that point in time. CBN might have acted otherwise, because I will give you an example. If you read the Financial Act of the Federal Republic, if you read Education Tax Act, it's clear. There are no ambiguity about it. They were clear about, oh, you're going to be charging so amount as education tax, and they define everything. Why is such happening in the Cybercrimes Act, and there is no clear definition? And this is where I strongly think there must be a misunderstanding somewhere.
All right, so let's go over this article. In the article released by you, you said one of the objectives of the Act is to ensure the protection of critical national information infrastructure. And you also said the Act failed to state Nigeria's critical national information infrastructure. Instead, it relied on the president through the NSA to designate certain systems, networks as critical. Thankfully you're on the program. Could you tell us what constitutes our CNII in Nigeria?
To be honest with you, I don't want to start looking like I'm criticizing, just only criticizing. As it is today, I don't know how many people have gone to hospitals, public hospitals in Nigeria, and you're talking to a doctor and is accessing your data from a computer device or something. I've not seen that happen in our country. Now, in a summary, most of the most advanced, the best advance of our technology when it comes to information security in Nigeria, they are actually in private hands. We've had many instances in the past where we had what we call the national grid collapse. No one told us that it was a result of cyber attack on our industrial control systems. That is what the system used for controlling distribution of power and generation of power. As it is today, there is no clear definition. And I will tell you the worry here. I personally think that the people who put this act together, there are no deep thought around it, that every part of the world where critical national information infrastructure is defined, they have clear criteria. You can't just design an act around an individual. That is not the best way to put control in place. So what it means is this. The national, I'll give, this is an analogy. It's not like it's happening. So that nobody thinks I said it's happening. Now, let's give an analogy here. National Security Advisor suddenly just woke up and told Mr. President, who probably, a president who probably did not have any appreciation of IT, and said, oh, First Bank server is a national, is a critical national information infrastructure. And they started, the president ignorantly or whatever, approved of it. So it means funds collected from us will be used to support activities of a commercial bank. And it can go on and on. And that is where this idea of this section of the Act is not great enough.
But sadly, we cannot, Mr. Adenuga, sadly, we cannot guarantee that, that was what exactly happened. But let's talk about Section 44 of the Cybercrimes Act 2024 as amended, which you have found controversial. Now, when you said the CBN misinterpreted the section, what is the most appropriate interpretation and probably application of that section?
My clear interpretation is that the logic, I may be wrong, when that act was put together, it is not to charge individual customer who carry out a transaction at a bank on a face value of their transaction. The act is clear. It talks about the businesses. So I guess my view is that probably someone has interpreted the word businesses to mean electronic transactions, business electronic transactions. Whereas the act was clear. It defined the businesses that I was talking about in the subsection of the Act, which it says that, all GSM operators and internet service provider, financial services, insurance, including, of course, financial services include insurance organization, Nigerian Stock Exchange, and also internet service provider. So he listed those businesses. So where does it come in that someone will suddenly say, okay, let me give you an instance. You want to transfer money. Let's follow the logic of CBN. You want to transfer money electronically. By the letters of that act, you're going to use internet. And in that act, there is an internet provider registered as a business. So let's say NCC now also wake up and say, oh, because you are using internet, and it's also in this act that any the electronic transaction you carry out, okay, we're going to charge 5%. Where are we going to stop? Because that is what actually that act is. If everybody, if all the organization mentioned in that act, we implement that act as CBN has done, we're going to be in serious crisis, and it won't be all go well for everybody. So that is probably not the interpretation of that. But like I said, this is subject to debate. This is subject to legal opinions are there. So this is my own opinion, and I may be wrong, but this is the way I view it, and that's why most cases things end up in
I asked that question because from your article, you seem to raise the point that there are some lacunas in the Cybercrimes Act 2024 as amended. So if so, my question is, what are these holes?
Well, if you look at the act itself, like I said, when you look at that article, I felt so sad having to be someone who has been an IT champion for a very long decades, and have to stand in a position of having to criticize a law that's supposed to stop crimes, cyber crimes. But that said, even if we're going to have a cybercrime act, it needs to have face value. It has to be appropriate. Let's give an example. Some of us have been complaining before now. A young man in Nigeria goes out on the road and a police officer stops the person and starts searching them. It is some of the provisions in this act that gave police that, and there is no clear protection.
All right.
There's no clear protection, and there is the most ridiculous part of this act that I just can't get my head around it. Especially Section 19. You cannot legislate about how a business will transact. You say, oh, you should not allow a staff to have right to post unauthorized. Who told you? There are a lot of privileges that can exist between posting and authorization. It's up for the business to design the compensating control they will put in place if they find a violation of separation of duty. It's not for any act to determine this for businesses. All right,
now let's expand this conversation. I mean, given the escalating threats, there is no doubt that funding is required for enhancing our critical national information infrastructure. I mean, before the suspension, the levy is estimated to generate more than 3 trillion naira, to 5 trillion naira annually. But like other IT experts who have called for the expulsion of the levy, how would you propose the government funds cybersecurity?
For me, it's very simple. At this point in time, I don't think Nigerians should fund, the legal proceedings that maybe someone committed a cybercrime and National Security Advisor's Office wants to complete an investigation. I don't think it's Nigerians that we should be levied to be able to do that. At this point, because there are two things here. When we're talking about cybersecurity, it's not cybersecurity this act is about. This act is actually talking about cybercrime. So in other words, you want to be just the activities that the police perform to charge people to court, to look at a case and feel like, oh, this is a case prosecution counsel are going to be able to win, and they decide to take it to court. Why should we pay for that? We're already paying taxes.
So, Mr. Adenuga, my question is, how should government fund this? Do you think there should be a special budget for this, or do you think it should be part of the defense budget?
It should be part of. It should be clearly be part of defense budget. Government has a way. I mean, don't get me wrong. They could increase how much we pay in pay as you earn, or increase corporate tax. But I think what is really difficult here for many to be able to grasp is the fact that we're going to be paying into a pot, but the funding is not actually to support the cybersecurity of a nation. Rather, it's about prosecuting a crime. It's just hard for me to swallow, to be honest.
All right. So let's go back to your article, and I want you to be very explicit. You said, and I quote, more than half of the Act's sections were dedicated to cybercrime offenses, with in-depth details of penalties, except details which outlines the clear definition of what really constitutes critical national information infrastructure. What do you mean by this?
Yes, you see, as it is today that we are speaking, there is no provision in that Act that says that these and these are our critical national information infrastructure. Fine, I'm not expecting an act to go into that level of detail, but we can have criteria. Now, you see, you cannot stop corruption without some level of standardization. The definition or the understanding of those who put this act together about what constitutes critical national information infrastructure sits only in the hands of the National Security Advisor advising the president, and just say, oh, a particular system is a critical national information infrastructure. Usually, in every part of the world, the basic criteria is this. A critical national information infrastructure will have to be an infrastructure that if it's not functioning, Nigeria will not function. And also, it can affect lives of Nigeria. If any information asset that we have, either in the hands of private individual or in the hands of government, fits into this criteria, then it could be regarded as a critical national information infrastructure. But as we speak today, that is not stated clearly in that act. Instead, it's just about one individual, a national security advisor, having to tell the president, oh, this and this is what you're going to do. And I think that is where the main concern is regarding this definition.
All right. I mean, you talked about corruption, and I know that concerns have been raised about transparency and accountability. I mean, 3 to 5 trillion naira domiciled in the office of NSA. But from your article, it looks like you're more concerned about sustained transparency, even when Malam Nur Ribadu is no longer with the NSA. Yeah,
because if you look at it, I would say I'm a fan of Malam Ribadu, for his level of integrity. However, and I think many Nigerians will be in that position, will feel the same way about Malam Ribadu. He's a great choice to be our national security advisor. However, it won't be Malam Ribadu forever. So that is why when we define control first and foremost, it's not just about, oh, we want this happening, we want good thing to continue. We want our desired outcome to be what will continue to happen to us. Now, how would we ensure that? It's not about Sonny Adenuga becoming National Security Advisor. It should be about the process. And one of the first things you could do as an organization to make sure your process is clear and direct is to have a standard of anything you do. For instance, you say, oh, you have a policy for this. And anybody that comes in for that, whoever is in that position is going to follow that letters of the law, is going to follow that policy. But where you leave it, where you leave so much room for different forms of interpretation, then you are calling for a lot of trouble. And people will start, anybody can get there and start abusing the system.
All right, I mean, let's move on. This is also because, the president has asked for a review of the modalities of implementing that levy. Let's still talk about concern. Another concern for Nigerians is that some of these other levies are on profits. I mean, you pay after making your profit, but this is a transaction tax. From your point of view, what impact do you think this would have on ease of doing business, especially at the time the president says it will remove all bottlenecks to ease of doing business in Nigeria?
Well, I think event has override that now, because the good thing is that Mr. President has already ordered that, look, you cannot do that. And I think clearly we know our president is a champion when it comes to finance, and you can't take that away from him. So Event has overtaken that, and I want to believe that CBN should do the right thing, not to burden Nigerians further. Like the president has really seen and has said, look, you need to think about this. And I can tell you clearly, in fact, I just finished in a section with our legal counsel, and we're looking at the possibility of having to present a robust case at the court of law and stop CBN if they do not release a press release themselves saying that they cancel this particular circular they have sent to the commercial bank. We believe they have acted out of order, and that is subject to legal interpretation.
As
but when it comes to sorry, Jumoke, but when it comes to the burden on Nigerians, obviously we all know, and that's why many people are crying that look, this is going to burden Nigerians. But like I said, I think event has already overcome over that now, and we can say that won't happen at least, quote and unquote, at this point in time.
All right. As an IT expert, I'd like you to talk to us about how unregulated our cyberspace is.
All right, sorry. It's actually, you can spend the whole 24 hours talking about that. But I think one of the ones that disturbed me most in our cyberspace is the level of unrestricted access that young people, especially children in our country, have to the internet. Look, in fact, in the United Kingdom, for instance, there are already conversations being had about stopping. They're going to probably be legislation. They're going to stop some children forever. They will never have access to internet, just like they have done with tobacco. For the first time, there will be a generation that will never smoke in their life. And we're going to probably get to that point. Now, when it comes to our cyberspace, that for me, that is the biggest concern, because we all growing up in Nigeria, our mind, our brain are in a way preserved. We were able to be children, and we just want to be children, and we're able to do a lot of things. And I feel, I'm not criticizing young people. They are not responsible for the position we have put them in. We have chosen not to be great parents and adults for them, to look out for them. Mm. And for me, that is the biggest concern I really have, because there is not really any nation that can prosper and develop when the younger generation is not nurtured very well. That said, also, we're not developing enough. Look, IT is expensive. There is just no way. Look, if you want to design any IT tool anywhere in the world, it does not matter if you're in Nigeria and you call someone in the US, or you call someone in America, in India. Oh, design also hard for me. It's not going to say because you're in Nigeria and dollar is $1 to 1,005. It's still going to charge you his amount. And that is why it is very, very important for government to put right policies in place to encourage a lot of young people. And look, it's not enough for government to just think, oh, I'm training 2,000, I'm training 1,000
right.
people.
So how worried should we be as a nation? I mean, if you say there are unseen threats in the digital world, what are these threats, and how worried should we be as a nation?
Well, we live in the global world, and the threats are there around us. Now, as an individual, there is, I won't say, I can tell you that, probably much is not yet being done, but there are a lot of effort also that are being put in place in Nigeria. I will have worry, but also I'm going to be cautious as any Nigerian that, look, right, when you are there in the internet space, you should be mindful that the game is changing. The level of artificial intelligence as we speak today, we talk about deep fake. A lot of things you're going to be seeing online are going to be very, very...
all right then, Mr. Adenuga. Sadly, we're out of time. Thank you so much. Thank you. I've been speaking with Sonny Adenuga, IT expert, and is also the national chairman, Boot Party. Thank you so much for joining us this evening on Politics Tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.